But let me invite Suresh Ganapathy, the banking expert from Macquarie. You know, Suresh, Abhishek began by saying it could be a muted quarter for banks, but there is nothing muted about this report of Suresh Ganapathy, which I have in front of me. I've never seen, such a cheerful report. It is titled Upgrades, Upgrades, Upgrades. And then goes on to say that, the earnings of public sector banks can rise by what, 80 to 150%? Is that what you said, Suresh? Benign asset quality phase to be seen for the next 5 years post COVID-19. Well, tell us in your own words, you are definitely very upbeat about the sector.
Sure. Okay, Lata. So if you were to look at, Lata, the last 10 years asset quality phase, of course, the first 3-4 years was dominated by issues in the retail asset quality side, right? So there were some problems post GFC, and two-wheeler loans or personal loans and unsecured loans did create a problem. And then we had a 6 to 7 long tenure of a bad asset quality phase in the corporate segment. And just when we thought things are getting better, of course, the COVID struck us. But then what we realized was that this is actually, 1 year phenomenon. And post that, barring some few sectors here and there, situation should come back to normalcy. So let's look at it in this way, that for the next 5 years, which are the segments which would create a problem? Retail is fine. Corporate, most of the large assets have already been recognized as bad. Most importantly, banks on existing NPLs have already provided 75% if you were to go by the recent trends and progress report of Reserve Bank of India. So there is not going to be any legacy related NPL provisioning which banks need to make. It's all a question of incremental stressed asset creation. And that's where I think there is no further stressed assets to be created. And therefore, we are going to see a very good 5-year, at least, asset quality phase, in my view, for the entire banking system. And that is what is the main reason for our positive view on the sector.
Okay, that's great to hear. Suresh, hi, good morning. Happy New Year to you. And hope you have a safe and healthy one this year.
Thanks.
I want to talk a little bit about valuations, because in your note you do mention that valuations are still below historical averages.
Yeah.
On this parameter, which are the stocks that look the most attractive to you now?
Yeah, sure. So, Sonia, the way you should look at it is that, of course, barring Kotak, which obviously tends to swing the valuations for the entire sector on a higher side, most of the other stocks are closer to averages, and when I'm looking at valuations for the sector, I'm also looking in the context of valuations for other sectors, right? So if you were to look at sectors like IT, consumer, the valuations are way above historic averages, and banks is one sector where if you look at stocks like HDFC, ICICI, Axis, valuations are at best at historic averages or marginally below that. To that extent, I think there is still significant upside to be played upon, and I think people are just trying to be a bit myopic and looking at the 3-month performance and believe that the upside is capped. I think you look beyond the last 3 months' performance. In fact, the last 12 months, the banking sector has underperformed. A marquee stock like HDFC Bank, for the first time in several years, have underperformed the broader market last year. So I do believe that these stocks like HDFC, ICICI, Axis have further room or legs to rally over the course of easily next 2 to 3 years.
Okay, Suresh, good morning. But you know what? Just in the last 6 months or so, more money has been made on stocks like IndusInd Bank and State Bank of India. So do you think that could continue to be the trend? As you know, if the thesis plays out, especially on bad loans.
Yeah, sure. So yes, definitely. I think the valuations for both of them are pretty attractive. And what we are calling here is basically a sharper than expected pickup in the economy, which is obviously going to be beneficial for IndusInd, which is more active in the commercial vehicle space. Of course, SBI, which is a proxy for the entire economy. So these are the stocks which would be beneficiaries clearly from a 1-year perspective when we are talking about a recovery. Beyond that, of course, it's going to be a function of who is able to sustain their market share or do better in terms of several of those parameters. So clearly from a cyclical standpoint, these two stocks will definitely do well even this year and perhaps broadly outperform the overall sector.
Okay, Suresh, can we extend this more? Because like I began in the intro, in terms of PSU stocks, you are saying that you're raising earnings can rise by 80 to 150% for these banks. So do you think that those who have the heart should actually be buying PSU bank stocks? As well, going down the line, Anuj mentioned mentioned IndusInd. RBL, DCB, IDFC First Bank. There are so many of them.
Yeah. No, so Lata, if you were to look at it, I know it's a bit misleading when you're saying that it's 80 to 130% up, is because your ROAs are very poor, right? So when you are at 10, 20 basis points, even if I change my credit cost assumptions by 10 basis points, then the earnings upside is 100%. So, so that has to be put in context. And having said that, Lata, apart from SBI, I don't think any of these PSUs are a big, investment, investment base in that sense. And you also have to look at the fact that, for example, you yourself broke out a story that from 12 PSU banks, we're going down to 4. So clearly there is going to be a risk with some of these mid-sized PSU banks who would be forced to consolidate. I still believe, Lata, the next 5 years, you will have to stick with the large ones because they are the ones who are going to be competitive enough to survive and gain market share. My problem with the smaller ones is that they have a relatively weaker deposit franchise, which can obviously be a stumbling block for them to do really well over the longer term. We really need to see what exactly they do on that. And mind you, there is obviously a risk of a possible increase in competition in case the RBI becomes pretty open and decides to give new banking licenses in the next 5 years.
Oh yes, there is that always policy issues. But Suresh, there are two other points of caution that I wanted to ask you about. First one, the Reserve Bank removing some excess liquidity. Now this of course will be a boon for banks because it is more likely to hit NBFCs. So a word on NBFCs with this tightening, should we worry or no?
See, if you were to look at it, specifically the large ones anyways don't have any dearth for funding as of now, right? So all the banks are more than happy to give them money. Secondly, on the contrary, all these NBFCs are sitting on excess amounts of liquidity. So what's likely to happen is with the economic recovery likely to gather steam over the course of next 6 to 12 months, even a withdrawal in the liquidity conditions or stance from Reserve Bank of India may not necessarily affect them in a big way because I presume that this is going to coincide with a reasonable economic recovery. Thereby, these NBFCs get better lending opportunities. Remember that the first 6 to 9 months, hardly these guys did any kind of disbursements, right? So to that extent, I think the excess liquidity being there with the NBFCs, that's pretty much comfortable and that can be deployed and that can take care of any withdrawal of stance of Reserve Bank of India.
Yeah. One more caution that has come is this, the smaller loans, the MFI and that category loans are clearly seeing defaults. I mean, Kotak has put in a report which is like chapter and verse indicating higher or more number of people not able to pay within 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, rural, urban. That report is a little concerning. You think we can be that sure that COVID-related stress will not come?
So it will be there, Lata. If you were to look at with some of my earlier reports, I think somewhere in December, I said that the retail NPLs in India, including microfinance and all other retail segments, will actually touch a 10-year high of about 4 to 5%. Right? So we were at 2% for the last umpteen number of years. So that is not sustainable. So you're going to see increased retail stress or delinquencies in the next couple of quarters, particularly by the end of March. As I said, we are expecting retail NPLs to touch a total 10-year high of about 4 to 5%. But it's already there in the price. It's already there in the COVID-related provisions that banks have been making. So to that extent, I don't think there is going to be any negative surprise.
Okay. Suresh, what about non-lenders? I mean, if you've been tracking the data, for example, in insurance, all these stocks have been remarkable outperformers. Any thoughts here in the post-COVID world? Clearly, people are preferring to go for more and more insurance.
Yeah, sure. Anuj, they did have a very good time last year. I mean, all of them did pretty well despite the pandemic situation. So, I'm talking about in VNB margins, not necessarily in terms of growth, right? So clearly these guys did manage to sell a lot of protection policies. I think the structural story is intact, as in when the the penetration increases, clearly you have an upside to margins which is coming across. But only in the near term, I do have a little bit concern on the implications of the labor code and that having impact on the overall sales for the life insurance companies. And this is an evolving thing which we need to see how exactly this happens in FY22. As you know that the minimum basic component needs to be at 50%. And then if you have under ATC, the income tax deduction, your PF increase itself will take care of whatever gap you had in ATC. And to that extent, obviously, your ability to buy insurance purely from a tax saving angle reduces. And that will have an implication on growth. This is something which the market is not very well aware of, or less, it is less appreciated. And this is an important point which I would like to drive across.
Okay. The other space I wanted to ask you about before we let you go is this whole financer space, particularly the commercial vehicle financiers. We have seen a big boost there. Is it the start of some sort of cyclical upcycle, and how would you approach this space?
Yeah, definitely. Because if you were to look at it, there was obviously excess capacity in this segment, and COVID further resulted in that excess capacity getting aggravated. I think with these are obviously very big cyclical plays, completely contingent on the economic recovery. Clearly, the cash flows have improved over the course of last 3 to 4 months as the lockdown restrictions have eased. I do believe that from a pickup perspective in the retail segment, these guys, if not from growth, at least from a credit quality perspective, will see the biggest delta in terms of reduction and therefore consequent change to earnings.
Okay. All right, Suresh, it was a pleasure speaking with you. As always, thank you very much for joining us with an analysis of your recent report, which I just read out to you, is extremely bullish, expects the asset quality cycle to be benign for the next 5 years, because most of the heavy lifting in terms of bad loans, especially in the corporate sector, has already been done. They have been provided for. That's the message coming in from the new report from Macquarie and from Suresh Ganapathy. Okay, with that, we have to take our first break, and we're going to stick with this finance theme which Suresh has put on the table, and of course the realty theme which CNBC TV 18 has been discussing for several days now. We're going to be joined by someone who can analyze and give us a view on both. Girish Kousgi, the Managing Director and CEO at Can Fin Homes, joins in.